Okay, everybody, it is 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today for Emergency Preparedness Planning in Schools. Deb Hendricks will be our host today. Deb currently serves as the Missouri School Boards Association Center for Education Safety as an Education Safety Coordinator, managing the School Safety Academy program. Deb was a voluntary agency liaison for the State Emergency Management Agency for approximately 6 years before joining CES. Prior to that, she had a 28-year career as a public information officer for the state of Missouri, with the last 19 years at the Department of Social Services and its Children Division. These two positions solidified her commitment to meeting the needs of children and families during and after disasters. She served as a responder to many disasters, including the 2011 Joplin tornado and the 2019 Jefferson City tornado, numerous flooding events, and winter storms. Deb is a trainer for FEMA's Emergency Management Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and for FEMA on emergency human services topics. She's a consultant subject matter expert for FEMA and has assisted with the revision of several FEMA trainings. Over to you, Deb.
Okay, can you guys see my screen? Not yet, you can't. Now you can, or you should be able to, can you?
Not yet.
Not yet. I told it to share. Okay. Now what do you see, Ashley?
Yep, we've got you now.
Okay. I'm going to move you over here because I have two screens, and so I don't want to be looking to my left the whole time. So, hi, thanks for joining us today. I'm excited about doing this presentation. When I listened to Ashley's introduction of me, it made me feel old. But beyond that, it made me realize I've done a whole lot of different things, and I appreciate you guys being with me so that I can talk about the thing that I'm doing right now and why I think it's so critically important. So I do work for the Missouri School Boards Association Center for Education Safety, and we are the only statewide school safety organization in Missouri. So there are school safety organizations in all 50 states. Most of those are in the Departments of Education, Public Safety, the offices of Attorneys General. Ours just happens to be located in the Missouri School Boards Association. We launched September 1st of 2020, formerly partners with Public Safety and Homeland Security, and MSBA took full support of us in 2017. So we're dedicated to enhancing emergency planning, preparedness, and safety and security in schools throughout Missouri. I lifted this directly from our website, so I didn't just make it up for this presentation. This is what we do. We provide professional experience or expertise through our staff on specific topics, and we're the clearinghouse for reliable school safety information and resources for the state of Missouri. So, you know, firm partners with DESE and the Department of Public Safety, of course, but we try to be a clearinghouse and meet specific needs. So I'll go into that a little bit more later. We're guided by a couple of core principles. Teaching and learning don't occur without a safe and secure environment for learners, and those who instruct and support them. So what that means is, if you've ever heard anyone talk about brain science at all, the back of your brain is the stem, and that's where your flight, fight, or I never can get that without tripping on it. Fight, flight, or freeze responses are located. if this part of your brain is engaged, the front part of your brain where learning occurs can't be. They can't both be on at the same time. So we've got to be sure that this brainstem area is disengaged so that all of the attention for learning can be focused up here. And so that's part of the reason that we do what we do. And we know that safety at public schools has to be a community focused effort. So it's not just the school, it's not just us, it's all of us as members of the community. So we have to collaborate. We have to collaborate with policymakers and those who govern and manage schools, and parents and guardians, of course, law enforcement, fire, and other emergency responders, and then organizations that support children and families. So we try to be partners with all of those different areas, again, to move kids from always being in stress mode to getting firmly in learning mode. So as Ashley said, I want to do a few little poll questions here via Slido as we go along. Makes it a little more interactive, and it teaches me a thing or two. So here's the first one. What constitutes an emergency at a school? There's the question. If you would just type in your answer real quickly. I am anxious to see what your thoughts are. Okay, I was going to say only 2 of you are going to answer me. No, now we're up to 5. I'm excited. 7.
I would answer if I can, but I don't think I'm able to ask and answer.
Oh, okay. Well, you can just tell us later, Ashley, what you think.
For sure. We had a presentation earlier about continuity of operations, and one of the reasons they had to enact their plan was because there was a skunk in the building. So that could technically be an emergency at school as well.
It technically could, and certainly would if I were anywhere in the vicinity of the skunk.
Yes.
So.
Yes, me too.
All right. So 15, let's give it just a few more seconds. We'll give it about 15 more seconds. And then, Ashley, you'll show us the answers, right?
I think I should be able to. Can you guys see the answers right now? Can I get a thumbs up if you guys can see the answers coming through?
I just see the voting box.
Okay, I will.
Oh, Victoria says she can see the answers. So maybe it's just me.
Okay, it must just be us then. That
Okay.
can, well, I can see them, so it might be because you're sharing your screen. So
oh, okay.
If you want me to, I can run through a couple of them.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we have the active shooter, active threat. That's a lot of them. Anything that puts immediate threat to the safety of the school, an event which endangers or has the potential to endanger the facility inhabitants, an event which is causing or might cause harm. A lot of very similar yet very different answers.
Something that happens causing risk to the child. I like that, Holly. Okay, so let's close that one. Oh, okay, so right. Softball. Softball is active shooter. I mean, that's what most people think of when you say emergency at school. you think about Columbine and Uvalde and all of those other places where things have gone horribly wrong. And so what do we do about that? We're going to talk about some of these in a little more detail. There's been a lot of focus lately on hardening the exterior of schools. So let's do a bunch of construction and adding all kinds of technology and all that stuff to harden the exterior of the school. Okay, I have nothing against that strategy. I think it's a good one. But there's a human factor that we really have to take into consideration. Let's look at Uvalde. And pretty much every school. How did the bad guy get in? They had locks on the exterior doors. They did. But guess what? If you can have all the locks and hardening techniques in the world. But if the folks inside the building are going to thwart those, if they're going to prop open those locked doors, you are not going to have success just by hardening the exterior. And so that's a problem. And I guarantee you, when I talk to groups, they're like, absolutely our teachers prop doors. Absolutely our cafeteria staff prop them because it gets hot. Guess what? We're human. It gets hot in the kitchen. So we prop the door open to let some air in. But we can also let in bad guys and people we don't want to be in the building. So you have to also look at policies and procedures to address the potential for an active shooter event. And that looks like, do the people that are inside the building know what to do? Have we given it to them in plain language and easy to follow procedures? I was just talking to a security officer from one of the schools here in Missouri, and he said they had recently had a small fire in one of their schools. Not a big deal. They are all about drilling and knowing what to do when bad things go down. But he had a group of teachers, and they were standing in the hall because the exit that they always go out when there's a fire was blocked by the fire. And they literally did not know what to do. So let's look at easy to follow procedures and tell people in plain language, if door A is blocked, take your kids and go out door B. It's amazing how the human mind works and or doesn't work when we're in that survival mode. So that's where training and drills come in. And we know that schools do this. They're required by law to do drills. But do they know how to do it? Do they know how to do what we want them to do? So here's the $64,000 question. Is prevention possible? Can we prevent an active shooter event? The Secret Service tells us that there's no profile of a school shooter other than they are currently predominantly male and predominantly white, 63%. However, female shooters are on the rise. It used to be, even in suicide, people would attribute successful suicide to males more frequently because they tend to use a firearm. And in the past, females would choose another method to succeed at suicide. But that's all changing. Women and girls are carrying firearms now. So that raises the probability that they could be a shooter. The Secret Service also tells us, though, so while we can't go through a school and pick out, well, this kid and this kid and this kid are our potential shooters, what we do know is that 90% plus of plans to commit an act of violence at schools are known ahead of time. They have either been leaked to other people. By the way, he says as he walks through the halls, something bad's going to happen on Thursday. You might not want to do that. You might not want to come to school on Thursday because something bad's going to happen. Or their broadcast. You know what? I'm coming in to shoot up the school. If you wear red, he puts on social media. If you wear red on Thursday, I'm not going to shoot you. But I'm telling you right now, I'm broadcasting you, this is what's going to happen. So even though the vast majority of plans are known, most are not reported because the people who hear them say, I didn't think he was serious. He just always says that stuff. He's been a problem for years. Just ignore it when he says stuff like that. Plus, there's still among students a feeling that snitches get stitches and end up in ditches, as we used to say. So Ashley's right. If you see something, say something. So here's a way to do that. Missouri has Courage to Report. That's our statewide school safety threat reporting system. It is confidential. You can confidentially report to Courage to Report. You can do it by phone. You can do it by text. You can send an email. Lots of ways. But what we have to do is condition students to go ahead and feel that it's okay to report, because we need to know that ahead of time. But as much as we think about active shooters, blessedly, those are few and far between. They get a lot of attention, but they truly across the country don't happen to a Columbine or Virginia Tech level very frequently. However, weather events happen, school bus accidents happen, kids take guns to school, bomb threats are called into the school. These are the things that happen more frequently and why we need to do planning for all hazards. And we'll talk later about, what comes after these and what's left in the wake of a flood, which we've had so many of in the state of Missouri. So, again, the water goes down. We all know this in the emergency management field. The water goes down, can't see it anymore, so flood's over. Yeah, not really very much. So we've got families in that are impacted, and those kids are going to school, and they may be traumatized. They may have lost everything. So we need to continue to support them after things happen. School bus accidents. Hopefully they're not going to be very serious, but trauma looks different on kids than it does on adults. And sometimes adults think, that was nothing. They should just get over it. But you never know what's going on in their heads. I will tell you that threats are made in Missouri schools every day. and not just in urban schools, not just in rural schools, but in every school. Now, are some of them nothing? You bet. Some of them are just like, I walking down the hall with my 2 football buds and I say, you know what? I'm going to kill you tonight in practice. What do they mean? Do we take that seriously or do we just pass it off? We take it seriously. We investigate. We look at what's going on with the kid who brought the gun to school. Why did he do that? Why are they making bomb threats? Guess what? Sometimes we're just also discussing, we have our liaison group is in town today, and we were talking about the fact that it's amazing how many bomb threats get called in at the time that annual map testing is done. We think there might be a correlation there between kids not wanting to take map testing and calling in a bomb threat. You never get out of it, but they think they can. Okay, so our question is, when would emergency management get involved? That needs to be part of planning considerations at both the school and at the emergency management level. Are schools in your jurisdictional EOP? I hope so, but we often leave those out. So how big, how broad, how deep does it have to go before emergency responders get involved? At what level do you activate the EOC? Uvalde, I can guarantee you that the Emergency Operations Center was activated when the Robb Elementary School shooting happened in Uvalde. I know it did. And then, so what's your role? Where does the school's responsibility start and stop, and where does yours start and stop? So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. It's time for another poll question. Hooray. Larry wants to, okay, I don't know. Ashley, can you see that Larry wants to annotate the shared content? Okay.
I don't see that.
Okay, Larry, I'm going to let you do it. Get on with your bad self, as they say.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, so I'm trying to get to the next slide here, which is our next poll question. How much emergency operations planning do you think your schools do? And this is a multiple choice, I believe. So you can tell us what you think. Give you a minute or two to do that.
It'll show up in percentages. So can you see any of those, Deb?
I cannot yet, but.
Okay, so it looks like some has gotten 67% of the vote so far. A lot has gotten 36. And those two are kind of, ooh, girl, I wish you could see this. It's getting intense.
It is.
15 votes so far. Some is at 60%. Very little is at 7%. A lot is at 30%. And if I could be voting, I would vote a lot. I have one child in middle school. She's actually at the high school building this year. And then I have one in 4th grade at the elementary school. And they are constantly talking about, oh, we had this drill today, or we had this today. Or in counseling, the 4th grader, they have counseling and they talk about certain situations that could be classified as, things that we would need to talk about in this course. So I would say a lot, probably not fully prepared, because I don't think you can ever be fully prepared, but.
Okay, very good. Thanks for doing that, you guys. So the answer that I would give which was not one of your choices, by the way. I'm just saying.
Trick question.
Trick question. All of the above answers are correct because emergency planning and preparedness vary greatly in school districts. Some of it has to do with resources. Some of it has to do with interest, frankly, and some of it, I think there still is a very large percentage of Missouri schools that think nothing can ever happen to them. It's, boy, that's too bad. That happens at other schools, but that's never going to happen here. So how much attention they focus on it varies greatly. There are some aspects that are required by law or code or policy. There's certainly fire codes have to be met. Certainly there are drills that are required. But there's a level of there's a level where you just check the box, right? So like I did my drill and check, I can move on. I was at a little, I did an after action after a fire at a very small school in Missouri. And they, one of their students, again, during map testing, amazingly, set the toilet paper on fire in the bathroom. And so when I went in to do the after action, the first question I asked is, what drills do you do most frequently? And they said, I was expecting them to say fire. And they said, all of them. Okay. No, we know we do them all because we do them all on the same day, back to back. So we choose one day out of the school year and we do fire and tornado and hazardous material and active shooter. Bang, 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 bang. Check the box. We did everything we were supposed to do. I argued with them that this was not necessarily the most effective way to do their drills. So we had a discussion about doing them at different times, and I get it. Schools have to be focused on educating students. And so what they say is that takes time out of the academic day. If I disrupt the kids and make them go stand out in the parking lot for a fire drill or whatever, that takes away instructional time. And I totally get that, and it does. But it's an investment that really needs to be made. So we offer programs that assist schools in getting ready for all kinds of hazards. Here are some of our key programs, which I'm going to talk more about as we go along here. When Ashley introduced me, she told you that I am the coordinator of CES's School Safety Academy program. And this is pretty new. State law requires each school district to declare a school safety coordinator. So if you call any district in your area and say, who's your safety coordinator, they will give you an answer. The law is silent on training, on certification, on credentials. So this can be anybody from custodial staff to the superintendent. And so when CES realized that this is a gap, they said, let's try to put something in place that ensures that everyone gets the same level of training, and we'll certify them as school safety specialists. So we got a Stop Violence grant, and the School Safety Academy was created, and they hired me to put that together. So we have a basic academy that we do twice a year, and it includes 20 hours of practical skills and then school climate related sessions. And we'll talk about why that's important. And then we also ask them to do 8 hours of continuing education each year to keep their certification current. So practical skills. We talk about developing EOPs. We talk about site assessments, legal issues, crisis communications, cybersecurity, human trafficking. And then we do those school climate sessions also. What do trauma-informed schools look like? Do we have multi-tiered systems of support? How do we de-escalate youth that are in crisis? Let's do a behavioral risk assessment. Let's look at kids that come to our attention. Bullying and cyberbullying, even digital citizenship, because guess what? Kids live online these days, and we can't see as easily what's going on. So that's all part of the academy, as are these things. Behavioral risk assessment training is something we have rolled out, and we've done this at about 20 or 25 schools this year, and most states call it threat assessment. We have chosen the terminology behavioral risk assessment just because it's easier to work with parents when you say, I'm doing a threat assessment on your child. I think your child's a threat. They get pretty defensive pretty quickly. So we call it behavioral risk. It uses the Secret Service's threat assessment 11 questions. So this is what the Secret Service uses for their trying to determine where threats are. Those questions really go to motives, intent, and capacity. Why do they want to do this? How strong is their intent to do this? And then do they have the capacity? So this behavioral risk assessment screening helps identify students that are on a pathway to violence. We're hoping to catch them way down at the bottom of the scale where they are just having a grievance. They may feel they're bullied, they may be bullied, whatever. It all starts with a grievance, real or perceived. But then we can go in, schools can go in and address those underlying concerns and try to mitigate and say, okay, if there's a bullying issue, how do we change that? Do we make sure that those two kids are not in the hallways at the same time? So we change passing time for one of the kids. Are they not eating in the lunchroom at the same time? Those things are easy to do and do prevent violence. EOPs are critical. And as you heard in the earlier presentation, COOP planning, we have to know how things are going to run if something does go bad. So MSBA created the Mo EOP program. It's web-based. Schools can enroll, and all they have to do is answer questions. What's this? What do you do about this? How many doors do you have? How many? It's very easy to follow. As they answer those questions, a plan is created, an EOP is created for them. And then Mo EOP stores it, and schools can get to it at any time. They update it. It's easy to update it and keep it current, which is frankly a problem with a lot of EOPs, is they're not current. It allows the school to share with first responders. We also do training for schools. So CES staff conducts training about how to good crossing guard training, recognizing, and so crossing guard also is like, okay, do I see a threat around the school? Because these are the folks that are out there every morning, every afternoon. Recognizing concerning behaviors. We train support staff, bus drivers, food service workers, and custodial staff to recognize concerning behaviors in kids and report them. So the bus driver sees a kid that is reluctant to get off the bus and go home every day. He may want to tell somebody, think there's something going on in this child's house because he doesn't want to go home. We do train schools on incident command system because we know that it's critically important for them to have ICS. We do crisis communications. How do you talk about the bad thing that's happening and to whom? Reunification of families after an event is one place where the United States is kind of failing. There's a great video called In the Aftermath that was created by the FBI in 2020, and it looks at all the different school active shooter events and identifies where the failing kind of was in getting the right parents back together with the right kids. And then we also, of course, do training on MOEOP. We work with partners from around the country and bring training on digital citizenship, indoor air quality, vape-free schools. This is a big one right now. Vaping's a big deal. We work with the National Weather Service to do weather impacts. What do you do when you have the big football game and there's a lightning storm predicted? How do you do that? And where does everybody go if it happens while they're all sitting in the stadium? Sorry, I was parched. We do interviewing juveniles training, prevention of sexual abuse, pretty much whatever a school thinks they need, we will we'll either get it or create it. So that's one of our most important roles, I think. Another poll question. What makes schools safer? Do they have sample? No, this is, you just type in text.
No, this one is multiple choice. We have.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yep, we've got metal detectors, having trusted adults for students, bullet restraint glass, comprehensive EOPs, screening for concerned behaviors, and armed personnel in school.
Okay.
I'm leaning toward screening for concerning behaviors. I think mental health is such a big aspect right now, and it's something that's not always something you could see on the surface. Maybe it's more of an internal, like you said, are they fearing to get off the bus? Are they being picked on in the locker room during PE without, an adult around? So it goes kind of hand in hand with having that trusted adult for students. Our small school, our counselor is fabulous, and I think she makes all the difference in the world. So
good for her.
We've got 15 votes right now. 31% say screening. 25% is EOPs. Holly put in the chat trusted adults that are vigilant.
Nice, yeah.
The trusted adults are, it's really kind of even. Metal detectors and bullet restraint glass haven't gotten any votes. EOPs and armed personnel. Yeah, they're doing it.
Yeah. What about armed personnel?
Armed personnel and EOPs are tied at 25%.
Okay.
This one's really close. In the chat, we have one that says all of the above.
See, they figured out my trick. I'm trying to get this phone call to go to voicemail, but I'll just turn down the volume so you all can hear.
I couldn't hear it.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm impressed that this group recognizes, and delighted that this group recognizes that you can't do it all with hardening the exterior. I think it's important to have secure entryways. Of course. I think bullet resistant glass and film on glass, good idea. But those things cost money. And again, it takes me back to there's that human factor to even the best of those systems. But we talk to schools about no cost, low cost options. Door stops. If you stick a door stop on the inside of your door, it's very unlikely that the bad guy's going to try to come in. They tend to, if there's going to be violence in your school, they want it to be an easy target with a high body count, frankly. And so if it's hard to get into the classroom, they're not going to waste time. They're going to go to the next place. Or here's something that's so easy for schools to do. Identify entry points. So in other words, number your exterior doors so that when first responders come, you can say entry point 1. You can letter your windows so they know exactly which classroom, but that requires work between the school and the first responder to be sure that they know what the school looks like and all of those things. And then they need to think about that human factor. Had one principal that told me if I find I walk around the school and I find a door that's propped open, I don't say a word. I just kick the prop out. And then whoever went out for the smoke or whatever has to walk all the way around the building to get back in. Those human factor things are no cost, low cost. So that's what happens outside the school. Inside the school, you guys recognize that positive school climate is critically important. Kids need to have trusted adults. Schools need to recognize concerning behaviors, not just for violence, but also for suicide. They need to support reporting. So if you report, we have had a lot of kids say, well, I report, but nothing ever gets done. So we have to support that reporting and use those trauma-informed practices. I don't know if you've ever heard of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. There's a scale and you can answer questions and get your ACEs score. And the higher your ACEs score, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a psychopath or you're going to commit violence, but they are things that happen in your childhood that literally affect you all throughout your life. So trauma informed looks at those ACEs and says, okay, mom and dad are getting a divorce. So that's one. They're moving. Moving is difficult. Change is often hard for kids. So those scores can help us determine what kind of supports we need to give kids. And then, of course, inside the school, training and drills. And they have to be done in collaboration with first responders. I can make all the plans I want, and I can say in my plan, I assume that the police are going to do this when they arrive at my school. That's my assumption. So the police chief may come back and go, that's not what we do. That's not how we're going to operate. Same with fire. We can't make those assumptions. We need to have those connections. So are there any lessons learned? Yep. Shootings at Columbine, Arapahoe, Virginia Tech, Parkland, Oxford, Uvalde. Do all of those names ring bells with you? They certainly do with most folks. Columbine is sort of the grounding. That's the one that kids research if they're going to commit violence. So that's a red flag for us in schools. Okay, this kid's spent a lot of time researching the Columbine shooting. That's a concerning thing. I talked about leaking and broadcasting, and the Virginia Tech shooter was at the firing range, and instead of firing down line, he had targets laid on the ground, and he was walking along shooting the targets that were on the ground. That's a concerning behavior. So that boils down to communication, right? Not just reporting communication, but look at Uvalde, and there's a lot of investigation still to happen, but the appearance is that there were a lot of law enforcement officers waiting for communication before they made a move. That's important. And then that collaboration. Lessons learned from natural and man-made disasters, reunification and recovery. We know that when first responders come, once they have mitigated the threat, once they've put the wet on the red, the fire's out, they're leaving. When the cops have taken down the threat, they're leaving. They have done their job, but recovery belongs to us, whoever is left in the school. So we need these relationships. Schools. So this whole discussion today has been for me about what schools want emergency managers to know. They want you to know they do emergency preparedness planning, and they want you to plan with them. They want you to know that they understand ICS. They know how it works, and they know how it works in their school. So you need to listen to them when you're responding. We train them all the time. Incident command begins with them in the school. When the first responders come, command transfers to the first responders, but then it transfers back to the school for that recovery piece. They are starting to understand that, and they want you to come and exercise and drill with them. So these are things that I think universally schools want emergency managers to know. So the final poll question for me is, what do you want schools to know?
Last poll that we had, there were 17 votes, 18 in the two before that, and for the word cloud there was 26. So there are 35 people on this call right now. So let's get at least more than 26 answers for this one.
Because this, honestly, this is information I will take back to our school liaisons and say, guess what? Emergency managers wish you knew this. Okay, good stuff, Lonnie. Wow. Hand in hand on drills. I am just delighted to hear that. That is so great.
Okay, so we've got some responses coming through. No one is immune to an emergency. Prepare and act to protect our kids, that we are wanting to be involved, to be vigilant every single day. We want to work with them on preparedness, planning, and safety. Great. We are truly partners, and advanced planning is crucial. So those are the 6 answers that we have so far. I assume a lot of people are making lengthier responses to this kind of question. So,
or they're going ditto, ditto, ditto.
I see no thumbs up.
And guess what? The people who are the first responders also generally have kids or spouses or relatives that work in these schools. So they have a personal vested interest in helping to ensure that schools are safe. And they really want that. They do.
Yeah.
And but it's often difficult to figure out how to make that connection. What else have you got, Ashley?
So I've got Holly typed in the chat, if your staff do not buy in on a daily basis, nothing will truly be successful.
Exactly.
These others are anonymous. Preparedness is the best thing you can do, and EM is there for you. We are here to help and provide resources. We've got 8 of the votes and 1 in the chat there. And I just want to thank you again. I know we're not finished here, but I wanted to thank you again for being here. This is such a relevant and very important topic, but one that's also kind of hard to talk about. You know, it makes people uncomfortable. It makes them scared, but it's so relevant and so important to talk about it.
It is, and because it literally is happening every day in schools where kids are saying something, and you know, and some of them are very harmless. And I have to say, I don't want to get into a Second Amendment discussion, but we live in a gun state, and I'm good with that as long as people are responsible with firearms. So
Sure.
that's what we try to promote, because guns are part of our lives here. And so what we say is, have guns, just store them properly so that kids can't, because there was a 2020 or several years ago that one of those programs, they interviewed a bunch of parents that said, oh yeah, my guns are stored safely and my kids wouldn't even know how to begin to find them or load them or whatever. And then they interviewed the kids, and the kids took them by the hand and said, here's where dad keeps the guns. Here's where the key is to that box. Here's how you load it. I mean, they know. Parents need to understand that if they want to get to the guns, you have to make it difficult for them.
Yeah.
Again, not just for violence, but for suicide, because successful suicides are generally firearm suicides. The other things don't work as effectively. What else have we got? Anything?
So there's a question in the chat from Hal, and Wayland answered, what do you wish schools knew? He said schools need to work with emergency personnel on extraction drills. Columbia Public does very little pre-plan with all EMS agencies, heavy on law enforcement, but lack the rest of the emergency team players, EMS, mental health, etc.
Nice. Good to know.
And then Hal's question is, comments please regarding the use of an SRO and suggested ratios with students and staff and or school buildings in the district, numbers of school districts in the building. Oh my gosh, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think the rest of you can join in the chat and put comments. My comment is that we would love to have an SRO in every school building, not just because they carry a gun. SROs have a role in so many areas of kids' lives, and it's up to the school to decide what they want the relationship with the SRO to be. If they want them there simply as a deterrent, that's perfectly fine. They can make that agreement with the law enforcement. But the National Association of School Resource Officers really talks a lot about a triad that SROs abide by. They are mentors, they are educators, and they are law enforcement. But having a good relationship with the kids in their buildings is huge. And good SROs really work at that mentor and educator role a lot more than law enforcement, frankly. Some SROs have told me it's 90-10 in terms of percentage of their law enforcement involvement versus mentoring and educating. And I'm good with that. There's a little school that I was up in the northeast corner of the state, and I was walking around with the SRO, and there were little 6-year-old girls hanging on him. Officer, will you eat lunch with us today? It's our turn. We want you at our table. And I said to him, Tom, you are the perfect SRO because you have that relationship with those kids. They know they can trust you if something's going on inside the school or outside the school. So I am all for SROs in every school. Um, I don't know like a ratio of students to staff. I would say one per building is my preferred ratio. And I know it's difficult. Right now, law enforcement agencies are stretched really thin. But again, this is an investment. What else? Oh, wait, I'll go to the next slide, which says,
There's nothing in our vote. There was the 9, so mission failed team. We did not hit even 10, let alone more than 26, but that's okay. We got a lot of good answers, so.
yes. And so this is my contact information. Ashley will also have it. If you have questions or comments or, you know, rotten tomatoes you want to throw or whatever, please get in touch with me. I will tell you that I told you we have regional liaisons here at the Center for Education Safety. And I went and met with SEMA's regional coordinators, and we are trying to hook those two liaison groups together so that information can be passed, because our liaisons go to the schools, SEMA's liaisons go to the emergency management directors. But we're happy to come and speak at emergency management events like this one. We'll do whatever we need to do. And we want you to be in contact with your schools, and we'll encourage schools to be in contact with you, because this is a partnership that is really critical, I think, to keeping kids safe in the state. And really, who wants that? Who wants anything more than keeping kids safe? I just, you know, things like Uvalde just break our hearts. And so we have to try to figure out a way to navigate this new real world that we're living in. We may not like the fact that it's more dangerous for kids, but it is. And again, don't take my gun. Don't call my boss and tell them I'm anti-gun, because I'm not. I just want them to be stored safely. But I feel the same way about crossbows and sabers and any other kind of dangerous object in your house. I did get a call from a kid, or from a school, that said, I had a gun incident at my school. And I'm like, okay, this is my parting story for you is this. I had a gun incident at my school. I'm like, okay, what happened? And he said, well, guns are not allowed on our campus. Yeah, I know that. He's like, so this kid got an 8-point buck, and he was so proud of it, and he wanted to show it to everybody. And so he brought it to school because he hunted before the school day started. Guess what? The rifle was hanging in the back of the truck. And I said, really, is that a gun incident? And he goes, well, kind of. I said, what'd you do? And he said, I told him to take it home and come back to class. So let's be common sense. But somebody had reported that Johnny had a gun at school, right? Very good. We took it seriously. We recognized that the threat level for Johnny and his gun was very low. He was just proud of his 8-point buck. So school safety is about everybody saying something when they see something, and then good looks at whether it's dangerous or not. Let me know what you need. Let me know what I can do for you. And thanks for paying attention to me for the last hour. I appreciate it a lot. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for being with us, Deb. To all of the attendees, thank you guys for taking time out of what I know is probably a very busy day for you guys. Come learn with Deb and myself. I learned stuff. I tried not to cry. I almost cried. Like, I clapped. I laughed. So it was great. So I want to thank you guys for being here, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their Thursday. If you need anything, feel free to reach out to either Deb or myself.